to the All Relationships Can Heal podcast. My name is Rebecca Thompson Hitt, and I am your guide on our healing journey. I will be sharing stories of hope, healing, and support during our time together. Today, I'll be sharing with you why we're here with a little bit of my own story. So, the idea of the Consciously Parenting Project was first conceived when my oldest was born in 1998. And I was really overwhelmed trying to find my way through all the parenting information, most of it conflicting, to figure out what would work for me and my family. When I think of those days, I have memories of sitting on the floor at Barnes& and Noble, this was before the internet was really a thing, looking at parenting books, choosing a stack of interesting titles, and trying to apply it to my screaming baby through the fog that was my early parenting experience. I didn't understand about difficult births or the impact of stress during pregnancy. I didn't understand about regulation and the need for good support as I was caring for my very fussy baby. I learned a lot in that first year. Most of that wasn't what I learned. I learned that much later. One of the biggest things I did learn was that I needed other people who were committed to parenting in a conscious way. Prior to my son's birth, I had nearly completed my master's degree in marriage and family therapy from Barry University in Miami Shores, Florida. My thesis was on attachment and trauma, but it was all book knowledge at that point in time. I really had no idea how to apply it to my life. But I knew that I was going to create a place where parents could go to find their own way. I had no idea how I was going to do that. I mean, there certainly wasn't the internet as a viable option for work at that point in time, but I just knew that I was going to do something. The name, the Consciously Parenting Project, came to me during one of my sleepless nights, and I knew that one day it would be something important that would help many families. I began working with families through my first attempt to find like-minded people and gather them together around healthy food. It was called Baby's First Supper Club, which was a monthly gathering of families local to South Florida, where I was living at the time, so that they could support each other in parenting their young children. As I grew in my parenting and learning from the families who came into contact with me, I discovered that every family truly is unique, and there was no one-size-fits-all parenting advice that works for every family. We needed to do something more, something deeper, something more than just lists of things to do when your child does blank. We needed to do better, and we needed new ways of looking at the behaviors of our children. And I think no one needed that more than I did. I really, really was searching, and I really wanted to find what would work. And I found lots and lots of things that did work for me. We did baby wearing and co-sleeping and extended breastfeeding, and those things worked for our family. But I knew I was missing something else. So when my middle son, Jacob, was born and died from a fatal birth defect in 2002, all that I thought I knew about parenting went hurtling out the window, and my oldest son and I really struggled. It was almost impossible to get out of the house without meltdowns. Frankly, it was impossible to get back into the house without meltdowns. He was clingy and he was angry. And I was probably all of those things too. I didn't see how Jacob's birth and death was related to those behaviors, that we were both grieving. We both needed more support. It wasn't until several years of struggling later that I finally met the people who could support me and the next steps of my journey in healing my relationship with myself and with my son. It was after that, in 2007, that I finally had enough information and had done enough of my own healing work that it was time for the Consciously Parenting Project to be born. We launched on September 21st, 2007, 5 years after Jacob's birth and death, to honor him and the growth and healing I experienced because he was born. I began working with families who had children who joined their families through adoption. And those families taught me so much about difficult behaviors and what healing really looks like. I am still in contact with many of those families over 12 years later. Their children are now teens or young adults, and healing looks different for all of them. I saw a real need for the same information, for the same support and compassion I was able to offer the families whose children had experienced the trauma of adoption and were showing their story through their behavior with the families who had experienced other losses and traumas, or who just didn't understand why a child seemed so difficult or why everyone was having such a hard time now. I wanted all families to have the opportunity to heal together, to learn together, and grow together. So, about 8 years ago, I started doing what I call healing story circles and the work I call healing stories with families. These processes give us the experiences of being seen, heard, and felt in our own story so that we do all the healing that we need to do. The other thing that's part of that is also having the resilience in us, the strengths in us also seen. Those are the things that we can't see when we're in the midst of something that's hard, but it's there. When we are supported to do our own work in a safe, non-judgmental space, we then have the space to really listen to the story of those we love, and we can develop the skills we need to effectively do that when we have experienced it. Now, 12 years later, the work of the Consciously Parenting Project has touched people all across the United States, Canada, Mexico, Ecuador, Brazil, India, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Slovenia, England, Sweden, Colombia, and France. Weekly right now, I have people gathering for healing story circles from the US, Canada, Mexico, India, South Africa, and Slovenia as they do their own healing work together, discovering how similar we are, no matter what corner of the world we call home. The healing I see happening in these circles is incredible, and I feel so blessed to do this work. And I'm super excited to see what happens over the next 12 years. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of the ideas that I learned, the stories that I hear, that I have permission to share with you on the All Relationships Can Heal podcast. So right now, my family and I are calling Oaxaca City, Mexico home. So what I share on my podcast is going to be enriched through my experiences and stories of living in this part of the globe. When I am in the United States, I call the St. Petersburg area of Florida my home, and I love the beach and sunsets. Well, right now, I am living in the mountains. My husband Trey is also he's sure to show up in my stories. He is my partner and fellow adventurer on this journey through life. He's a photographer and writer and is in heaven with all the material here in Mexico, the amazing food and the warm people. On this podcast, I'll be sharing stories of healing from all corners of the world. I'll be sharing information, support, and hope. Plan to join us for each new episode. They're all about 10 minutes long so that they are parent-sized. Well, at least that's what I'm aiming for. And you'll hear stories on the All Relationships Can Heal podcast. I'm Rebecca Thompson Hitt, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Until next time.